Lesson 2 in our module, it is not about you. And this is something that if you are a leader, if you are a chair of an event, if you are a treasurer, board president, I don't care. If you are a leader in your PTA, you need to think about yourself in this way at all times. It is not about you. And I find that PTAs, PTOs have a really bad reputation of being cliquey, of being particularly mean girls, because most of them are made up of women. And I think a part of that is that PTAs will let their egos get in the way and they start making everything about them, what they want, what they like to do, and they stop thinking about the students, about the parents, about the administration, about the principal. It's not about you. You are here to serve. It is a volunteer position. That is what you're here for. Do not forget it. So the first thing you're gonna have to do is step outside of your ego. You are not here to find glory. This is not your gift to the world. This is giving you purpose. It will give you a lot of satisfaction because you are making a difference. But this is not here to earn an award. This is not going to be the thing that you hang up on your home office as a plaque and say, wow, look what I did. It's just not. Ultimately, you need to constantly be thinking about how you can serve other people, because when you are a leader, that is your role, is you are ultimately the servant in the situation. You are here to serve the audience, the students, the teachers, the parents, and the staff. It is hard, but at the same time, you will greatly succeed if you let that go through your head. If you can not take things personally, if you start to see it as, I am here to listen, I am here to understand. If you stay curious, if you stay humble, then you are going to be a much better leader than what your PTA may have seen in the past. Start asking more questions. There are a lot of natural born leaders, and if you are in some type of leadership role, this could very well qualify for your personality, because you're likely someone who doesn't need to be asked to volunteer for something. You probably say, hey, I could help with that, and you go ahead and do it. And with that comes often a difficulty in listening. And you can always find that you listen better if you start prioritizing questions versus just throwing information out and saying what you want to do. So the first questions that you will probably want to ask are to staff and administration. Start talking to your principal, asking different questions. What has the experience with the PTA been like so far? Historically, what have you liked? What have you not liked? What are some things that you would find super valuable? How do you like to be appreciated? How can we best serve you? Is there anything that you would love to see in the next couple of years within the PTA that would make a big impact that maybe I haven't thought of yet? Talking to the parents. How do you like to be involved? Do you feel like there's easy ways for you to get plugged in different areas within the school? How did you like these events that we were doing? Maybe putting out some surveys and asking those questions. You have to step away from your own ego in that as well, not take things personally, and purely take it from a curiosity perspective, because the reality is that's all it is. People want to share their opinions, and if you listen and genuinely take in that information, you are going to make that organization better and ultimately serve the school better. So next is to always remember you are a delegator. You are not the doer. This is something that is so difficult, particularly for women, because we love to get things done. I even myself have fallen victim to this often, particularly at the beginning of my term as president, because there was no systems in place. So it created this situation where I felt like I had to be involved and try things in order to really understand how we did it, and then I could document it and then delegate that on to someone else. If you need to do that, that's great, but you should never be in the position where you are doing everything. And too often, because we don't have enough volunteers, it ends up where you do end up doing the majority of the work for events. You do end up doing a lot of the promotion. You are the one who's putting on the meetings. Think of it as ultimately you are here to hand things off, to find the people, to find the champions in different areas of the PTA, whether that is, a trunk or treat. Maybe there's someone who loves Halloween. Ultimately, try and seek that person out. Delegate it to them. You should not be doing it. Your book fairs, if you do scholastic book fairs, I am sure that there is an avid book lover out there who would love to help run your book fair. You shouldn't be doing it. With everything, have a good understanding, review. You can be involved, but you are not here to micromanage. You are not here to do it all. You are here to lead and delegate and ensure that the entire time you are focusing on those past 2 goals, which are to make sure that staff and teachers are supported and that there's a great relationship between the school and the families and caretakers, or whatever mission statement you end up deciding to go with. So just remember, you ultimately are looking to hand things off. It's important to envision the organization as if you weren't here tomorrow. And this is something in my past professional life that I saw a lot, where people would just do and do and do and work. And particularly in a nonprofit environment, this happens a lot, where you are so invested in the cause and making sure that you make things happen that you end up not documenting or not taking the time to record what worked and what didn't. And you just end up kind of snowballing into this spiral of repetitiveness. And before you know it, you don't even know if the things you're doing are working. And if you were to disappear tomorrow, who would end up taking that on? In fact, that was a huge problem when I first came into my role, was because there was no documentation. It caused so many communication problems. It caused so many delays in areas where we normally shouldn't have had any delays, because there was nothing written out. We had no history. History is one of your best friends when it comes to performing well. You have to know, what have we tried in the past? What can we try differently? What do we think is a good idea? What ended up being a bad idea in the past? Because if you don't have history and if you don't have procedures, one, you're going to put people in roles when you do delegate. You're going to put them in a role that they're probably going to fail at because you don't have a way to train them. Two, you're going to repeat mistakes that have been made in the past, because if you don't have a record of what you've done historically, this happens all the time in the business world. You just end up trying the same things over again, and the ones that have failed, you just repeat, thinking, oh, maybe this will work, when you could have saved yourself the time and effort and done something that maybe you haven't tried before, instead of repeating another mistake that was actually done in the past. The last thing, you have to remember that this is temporary. You should not be moving into a leadership role with a school thinking that this is going to be the next decade or 2 of your life. There are too many board members, presidents, event chairs who see no end, and they just continue to kind of float through. And with that comes an immense lack of motivation, because once you've done it once, you kind of figure out, okay, this is what worked for me. Then you go ahead and do it over and over and over again, and you end up getting burnt out. You end up having fatigue with ideas. Your events may become stagnant. Refreshing the people who are in the roles, including that leadership role, is so important. The first thing that I did when I was voted in as our PTA president was I changed our bylaws, because originally there was no term limit. And I said, hell no. I am not doing this until my youngest, who's in preschool right now, is all the way through elementary school. I am doing this for 2 years max. I will set you guys all up for success, and I will share what I know, and I will work very hard for these 2 school years, but I will not be doing this forever. 1, because I will be burnt out. 2, because new ideas bring growth. 3, there are probably people in the school who could do this better than me. And that is another piece of getting rid of your ego. You need to understand that you are not the best, and that there very well could be a new kindergarten parent who's just brewing, waiting to get into the school system, who could probably really impact the school in a great way and maybe have different skill sets than you do. And that is perfectly fine. You can still serve in other ways. You can still do great things, but this shouldn't be a project that you're working on for the next 10 to 15 years. That also is where a lot of that bad reputation of a PTA comes from, because it feels like no matter what, when there is no term limit for a board, there is no term limit for a president, that things will never change. So giving people that vision of, okay, I want to get involved, I want to start becoming more of a leader and having leadership roles, keep that in mind. I know that this is a tough lesson for some people to learn, but I hope that you can take it and embrace it openly, not take it as an offense, because it's not. Because if you are in a leadership role, you clearly have skill, you clearly have some motivation, and you can clearly persuade people, and you can work hard. These are fantastic things, but in order to be a really good leader, you need to keep these things in mind.